I have some question about No More Heroes 3, about the development cycle, and about how it is like to develop for the Switch specifically. I first want to talk about January 2017. You came on stage for the first reveal of the Nintendo Switch system, and you talked about Trevor's upcoming return. And back then you focused on how the indie community had really inspired you to work on No More Heroes and do some more inspiration. I would like to know, how has it been like to work with indie developers for Travis Strikes Again, and how is that influencing No More Heroes 3?
The biggest inspiration I had from the indies, the biggest thing that affected my development cycle, was the fact that I looked at the size of indie teams and I thought, like, I want to be more like these guys. I want to go back to kind of the original days of my development and work with like a really small, flexible team. So I was thinking, maybe 10 or 20 people or something. And I noticed that a lot of indie games, they had teams of, around that size who were making their games. And then there are also really extreme examples, like the Hotline Miami guys who are making just 2 people for an entire, game. So I thought, like, oh man, I really want to go back to that sort of way of development. So I ended up getting a small team of about 10 people, maybe about 15 people for my core team for Travis Strikes Again, and developing like that.
In the first trailer for No More Heroes 3, we saw Travis sitting down and playing Ape Out on the television. Will there be more like those small indie references as well in No More Heroes 3?
So in No More Heroes 3, there aren't really going to be that many more collaborative cooperation sorts of things. Initially, we had the Ape Out thing. We talked to the developer, we got their okay for that, and that's why we were able to do that. But TSA was more like that kind of collaborative side, and for this game I wanted to be as one of the main parts of the series, more just like standalone.
I want to go back to the Switch presentation for 2017 where you first came on stage. It was a surprise to see you on stage because you were one of the first developers coming out and telling that you wanted to develop for the Nintendo Switch. Now it's 2.5 years later, and the Switch is a really big success. How has it been like to develop for the system itself?
So in 2007, when they asked me to stand up on stage for that announcement, I was really surprised. I was probably the most surprised person there. I was thinking, like, if you're going to do this, you should probably talk to like Level 5 Steel Sonic or somebody from Capcom or something. Get like those people up on stage. But in the end, Nintendo, they're the ones who asked me. They asked me to join up on stage with them. And at that time, I was already thinking I wanted to bring No More Heroes as a series back. And Nintendo gave me a lot of support when I was doing this. So since then, I was able to release Travis Strikes Again on the Switch, and now I'm working on No More Heroes. So having this much experience developing for the Switch, I have to say, the thing that really stands out to me the most is that Nintendo's platforms, their consoles, are always like a game system for gamers. They're gaming for gaming's sake. It's not like an upgraded PC with all these like additional stuff kind of added on. It's something that's been developed specifically for people to play with. And I think that's a really cool thing. And I kind of have this feeling that Nintendo is like a very punk sort of company in that sense. They're kind of creating something, like this. And I feel like, we're pretty punk as well. So I would hope that, we kind of get along really well in that sense.
In regards to that, the Switch being a system for gamers, the Switch has a lot of surprising features. For example, HD Rumble and the IR camera. Are there any of those features that you want to use in No More Heroes 3 specifically? Like, will motion controls return?
Oh yeah, definitely. I want to make really good use of that. I mean, in a lot of ways, I feel like the motion control system was basically, they put it in just for us. Like, we had on the Wii, we had that, the motion control thing. So, I definitely want to take full advantage of all of these systems and make it, something in No More Heroes coming out.
Does that become a problem now that the Switch Lite drops some of those features?
When they announced the Switch Lite, I was really taken by surprise. I was like, oh, for a minute. But eventually, I was thinking, okay, there are ways around this, there are things I can do, so I'm going to find some way to realize it in both systems.
It was good that you mentioned the Wii motion control and, of course, the shaking for the beam katana. A few days ago, Kojima-san came on stage and showed us a new trailer for Death Stranding, which has a dedicated urinate button for Norman Reedus' character. You can pee anywhere. Good luck. But we all know, of course, that No More Heroes was the first one who allowed you to sit on the toilet and, of course, had the waggle physics. So how is Travis gonna one-up Death Stranding Norman Reedus? What will be the special twist for you?
Wii モーションコントローラーのことを言ってくれてはちょっと次の話題にトランジションになると思うんですが、やっぱりWii ではそのビームセーバーのその充電のあれがあったんですよね。でも最近was yesterday you said?
Yeah, 2 days ago.
2日前に小島さんが新しいデスストラインっていうタイトルに、こうしょんべんをするボタンを設置したって、入れたっていうところを、どこでもしょんべんできるよっていうことは、一応そのゲームにあります。でも一番こういう発想をしていたのは鈴さんじゃないですか。トイレの広瀬トイレのこともあったんじゃないですか。じゃあ小島さんもあれはやってるんですけど、鈴さんはやっぱりもっとすごいことをやるじゃないか。それをじゃあ小島さんになんて言えばいいかな、小島さんにこれは全然あなたのことは大したことないよみたいなのを見せびる活動をどうやってやるんですか？伝えましたか？大丈夫ですか？
伝えましたね。
いや今の質問伝えたんですか？
そうですね、ノーコメントでいきたいかな。
I think no comment. Yeah.
Sounds like the best answer. All right, back to more No More Heroes specific questions. Are there any specific gameplay changes that you want to hit with No More Heroes 3?
In No More Heroes, the new one, there are some things that I do want to add in, some new kind of mechanics, and you can kind of see it in this poster here and over there too. In Travis Strikes Again, there was this kind of system, the Death Glove and the Death Drive, and that let Travis kind of tap into the power of video games to unleash skills that let him to do attacks and kind of defensive moves and maybe even slow down time and things like that. So for No More Heroes 3, I'm going to be using, as you can see, the Death Glove to kind of add not the exact same, but a similar sort of system that you're able to invoke the powers of video games in the real world, and use these skills. And when he's going to be using these to battle like Thanos level power alien enemies and just take them down.
So going over the top for fights has always been a staple of the No More Heroes franchise. How do you want to improve on that aspect? What new changes are you able to bring to the formula, so to say?
So you saw in the E3 trailer there was some kind of cool, crazy stuff that happened, but I think a lot of people saw that, have an idea of what we're going to go with for in this game. And what I want us to do is do something even bigger, that something nobody will accept.
So maybe including that mech suit we saw at the beginning of the trailer for Travis?
例えばそのメッカスーツ、フールアーバーのスーツも入れるってことですか？
もちろん。
Oh, of course that's going to be in there.
Awesome. The game has been in development for quite a while. I heard it's 50% complete. How is development coming along for the title?
So yeah, we're all really focusing on the development right now, and as you heard, we're about 50% done. We have all these various mechanics we're nearly done, like putting them in place and kind of realizing them. And I'm about 90% done writing the scenario. So I think we just want to keep trying, moving forward to create this awesome game, or a game that we think is really cool.
It's been a while since we last saw Travis before Travis Strikes Again, so the last No More Heroes 2 game. I think a lot of people have never played the originals before. Are there any plans to re-release the original games on the Switch?
We've heard from a lot of fans that they'd really like to see this, and this is something I personally would really like to do as well. And currently we're actually in talks with Marvelous about maybe moving forward with this whole project. But I guess the really hardest part about this right now is what sort of form would this take? Would it be a simple port? Would it be like a brush up where we just up the we up it a little bit, or would it be like a full-on remaster or remake where we remake it for the new generation? And I guess that's kind of the hardest problem that we're wrestling with right now.
Killer 7 is also one of those titles that a lot of fans have been asking to see return to. Are there any plans to maybe work on more of your older titles?
A remake sense?
Remake sense, re-release sense. Okay. There was a lot of cut content in the original, I heard, so maybe bring that over as well.
So right now there are no plans to do anything more with Killer 7, and mainly that's because Capcom is the one who owns the IP for that, so it's not really our decision. We have to kind of leave it to them. Of course, I would love to see more stuff coming out with Killer 7 and it on more platforms and so on. But recently Capcom supported us a lot in our port for the port for Steam, where they worked really hard with us for that. So yeah, I would like to see more, but once again, it's out of our hands. So
So the opening for Trevor Strikes Again had an update, which had a new cinematic, which hinted at something having to do with Killer 7, like you actually saw a character from Killer 7, if I'm correct. And I was wondering, is there sort of like this Suda-verse, weaving all your titles together in a very subtle way?
So for Travis Strikes Again, it's kind of like the 20th year anniversary. So what we wanted to do, and Capcom was fully on board with it, is kind of celebrate the history of all this stuff that has happened. So with that, we were able to get Dan Smith, that character from Killer 7, help in there. But whether or not we're going to make like an MCU style, like cinematic universe where everything has tie-ins and so on, maybe not really. But by the same token, I think it'd be really fun if in some way we were able to bring characters from different ones of my from different titles that I've worked on and kind of have them share screen time with Travis. I think that'd be pretty cool.
And in that regard, another one of your titles in the, let's call it the Suda-verse for now, was Lollipop Chainsaw. And you worked together with director James Gunn on that title. He's now very famous because of the Guardians movies and his other projects. Are you willing to collaborate with him again on a future title?
So I think if I got another chance to work with James, that would be just really fun. But I know he's super busy with Guardians, and he's coming back out here, and there's Suicide Squad and everything else. So, if he had time and if he was interested in it, I would absolutely love to do something like that. And occasionally we send emails back and forth, like, "Hey, you ever want to come back to the video game industry? I'm here. We can do some stuff." And there seems to be kind of that going on.
Aside from No More Heroes 3, you returned to another franchise. You're doing DLC for Fire Pro Wrestling, if I'm not mistaken. That's one of the first games you worked on. How is it like to return to two of your older franchises at the same time? Do they influence each other to a certain extent?
So yes, I think there was probably some influence that was shared across these titles. That working on one maybe had some influence in the other. But I think more than anything, it was just the ability to go back and revisit IPs that I worked on for me was a really nice thing. And generally, 26 years ago that I worked on some of these projects, like the ability to work on the same IP or bring it back would usually be impossible. But because Spike Chunsoft did such a great job of protecting the IP and really treasuring it, they kind of protected it to the future and looked for the right timing, and now the right timing came, and they've talked to me about working again on a new big entry into the series. So I'm really happy about that. And kind of for me, overall, it's almost like going home. It's like going back home after a while. So, yeah.
You've always worked on original titles for the most part, but we've seen more and more that indie developers have gotten a chance to work on larger titles. For example, the Crypt of the Necrodancer developers got to work on Cadence of Hyrule. Would you be interested in taking on the reins of an existing franchise? And what would be your take, for example, on Metroid?
In the past, I have had the opportunity to work on other bigger people or other companies' IPs, and whenever I've done that in the past, I've always found that really the hardest part of that is there's a big responsibility that comes on my shoulders. There's obviously the fans and the people who expect that series are looking for that. Like they're looking for the kind of feel, the essence of that series, and. We at Grasshopper, we have our own style of creation. We have our own color, but how much of our color would we be able to put into somebody else's IP? And I think at the end, when we think about it, and the experience I've had thinking about it, looking at it, really the end is we're not really able to put that much of ourselves into it. It's more like we want to try to go with what the series, try to extract the essence, the series' true essence, and go with that, because that's what the fans expect. That's what people look for in that series. So. In that sense, it's way easier for us to work on original IP because we could just put ourselves all over it. We don't have to worry about trying to meet other expectations and so on. But if I had a chance to work on something, maybe it would be one of Human's titles. I used to work with Human, so it would be something like that. But that would involve timing and luck, of course. Or if Nintendo ever wanted to give me the reins of the mysterious
Murasame Castle.
Yeah, that would be really fun. So yeah, I'd love to challenge that.
No More Heroes as a series has always been very satirical of the United States and culture regarding that. given the current situation in the United States with all that is going on, are there any specific themes that you would like to address in No More Heroes 3?
Regarding modern American politics and whether or not I'm going to kind of put any of that into my into the newest game, maybe I haven't finished the story. I'm not really sure exactly what I can, like what's going to happen and all there. But because the story is set in America, to some extent, we can't avoid talking about America as it is today. So, and we can't ignore it because obviously it's something that's happening. But, once again, it's not fully set in stone. We don't have any final decisions to make, so we please ask you to wait for the game to come out and be surprised with what sort of things there might happen.
The structure between No More Heroes 1 and No More Heroes 2 was very different. For example, the overworld. Have you decided on what to do with the overworld for No More Heroes 3 yet? Are you willing to reveal that?
So, I think a lot of that kind of comes down to what the fans' voice is. I want to listen to fan feedback and kind of maybe create something that everybody wants to say. But I think that there'll be a little bit. It's not decided yet. So
I'm hearing a lot about the fan feedback on Twitter or where else you get the feedback. That's very interesting. I don't hear many developers always using that. Has it guided you for the vision for No More Heroes 3, or did you already have a very clear idea of what you wanted to do and now you're just implementing fan-favorite features?
So I think a lot of that also depends on the timing. Like, so if we've developed like a lot of assets and then somebody says, oh, we want to see this, or there are a lot of people saying we can't really change it that late in the game. But for 3, we are listening to a lot of our fans' thoughts, and we're kind of trying to take what we want to do and then what we hear the fans want to see, and we're trying to kind of create like a middle ground sort of thing that we can realize what kind of as almost like a collaborative effort. And you might be adding in new features or new mechanics or something, but generally that's kind of how we're taking an approach like this.
Is there a specific feature that fans have been really vocal about that you decided to implement into the final in No More Heroes 3?
So one thing that kind of sticks out in my mind is that a lot of fans really like the bike missions that kind of popped up in number 1. So, I was thinking maybe that would be something really interesting to add in as a sort of side mission or side, like kind of mechanics in the game. I don't know. There were other ones as well. Like there was a sort of gardening mini game that you could do, and just like really kind of silly, stupid things that I initially put in the game kind of almost as a joke. But then people really enjoyed it, and we keep hearing about people, there's something that's stuck in their mind, something that they could get here in No More Heroes that they couldn't get anywhere else. So, we kind of think we want to add in things like this again, and maybe the exact things, maybe something different. But we want to kind of keep on that same train of thought.
And that's like extending the thoughts and the design that went into No More Heroes 1 and 2. So keeping those original elements, the action, the humor, while also reintroducing new mechanics, I guess. Could you explain a little bit about those probable new mechanics? I guess the over-the-topness of the boss fights?
So yeah, I am thinking about adding lots of newer things, but I can't really give you lots of details on them right now, sadly.
Will you still be able to go to the toilet and save your game, as in the original title?
3, right?
Yeah.
3ではトイレでセーブできるんですか?
Of course.
Of course.
Of course, もちろんです。Fantastic.
Travis Strikes Again at the very end had a sort of cryptic message that kind of confirmed the development for No More Heroes 3. How long were you playing around with the idea for developing No More Heroes 3 while working on TSA? Was it thrown in at the last minute, or were you very clearly set on the idea we're going to do No More Heroes 3 afterwards?
So I didn't initially plan this. It was kind of a last minute decision on my part to add this sort of ending. And when I kind of initially was like, hey, like we're near the end of the production cycle, I kind of got all the staff together. I'm like, hey, I want to do this, add this whole new ending as sort of like special, thanks and a special kind of message to the fans. Everybody kind of gave me this dirty look, like, how, why? And, eventually we were able to do it, but I remember that pretty well.
Yeah, as a final message to the fans, is there anything you would like the fans to know that you want to tell them in preparation for No More Heroes 3?
So, first I'd like to say that before we talk about No More Heroes 3, I want to point you guys to Travis Strikes Again, the Complete Edition, which is going to be out on October 17th for both the PS4 and the PC. And pre-orders are open now, so definitely grab a copy. And even if you played it on Switch, maybe you can also grab a copy of the PS4. It's pretty fun. But then regarding No More Heroes 3, we are planning on releasing it next year, and we hope to have new fights, a sort of new fight that Travis fights, a new adventure that he goes on. We're hoping it to be something that exceeds all the previous games that came before it. We're working on something, a completely new adventure for him. So look forward to it.
I think that's everything I want to know. Thank you so much.
Thanks so
for your
much.
time.
Thank you.